I started listening to Harry Hood every morning. I was like, there's 380 versions of this song.
Could have a really good year.
I'm gonna listen to one every day, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden it turned into a project. I listened. I didn't miss a day, and I listened to every single Harry Hood.
What's up, folks? Welcome back to the Best Show Ever podcast. The podcast where I interview people about the best shows they've ever seen in their lives. I'm your host, Cam Herdt. Man, it's Phish Week. You know what? We are getting close to Phish Spring Tour here. We've got to start gearing up for Phish. And so we have got two excellent Phish episodes out for you guys today. But the one that you're listening to right now is with truly one of my favorite Phish accounts on the internet. This guy is just beloved by a lot of Phish fans. He's someone who is posting about his best show ever experiences all the time through his page. He's also graphing out that experience, his experience, and also the general Phish experience for us. I really just I love this guy's account. I love the way that he maps out his Phish experience, talks about the seeing Phish and what emotionally that does to him. He's very vulnerable. I don't know why I'm still veiling who this is. It's YouEnjoyMyData is the guest this week. Someone who has been on my list for a while. And we finally got him on to talk about really his journey through seeing music, the music that was the soundtrack to the different parts of his life. You know, he talks about seeing the Grateful Dead in the 80s and bringing his mom to a Grateful Dead show, and then maybe seeing a couple Phish shows within that time too, but then really departing from that. And finding himself back in it again, of course, because right now, like I said, he is truly one of the best Phish accounts you can follow. If you don't already, YouEnjoyMyData, just a lot of fun. If you are a Phish fan, it is a heartwarming stop on the internet every morning for me. But yeah, great interview with this guy. I don't want to get too in the weeds in the intro here. We got another great episode out right now that is also a big Phish episode with former Phish tour manager Brad Sands. You may know him from the Bittersweet Motel documentary where he gets a can thrown at him and called a fucking tool. But this guy got some crazy Phish stories as well. It's just two great Phish episodes out right now. If you guys are enjoying the podcast, if you guys have been listening to season 4 and having a good time, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube. You can like on Spotify or leave a review. You can leave a review on Apple Podcasts. All that stuff is super helpful for the algorithm of it all. Just helps get the word out about Best Show Ever. If you're doing that stuff, thank you so much. But that's enough intro out of me. I will get out of the way so you can enjoy this fantastic conversation that I had with YouEnjoyMyData. But first, here's a little bit of music from Loon. Yeah, man. Are you doing MSG? You have to.
I'm not.
Oh,
that's actually the first time I've said I'm not. I said I've been wishy-washy about it, but I have that time off. My girlfriend does not, and she just moved. We'd had a long-term relationship for a long time, and she just moved to my town, and wow. I can't stand the idea of like leaving her in a new city on New Year's Eve, you know?
Yeah.
So, and we were there last year for Gamehenge. So, I was like, I'm coming back every year. And she was like, that was so good. I never need to come back.
You're both right. Both right. You could either save yourself a ton of money because you've seen the Gamehenge New Year's, or
that's right.
You got to commit to it. But yeah, I've, as we've spoken about, never done it. And I've been wishy-washy as well. And it's really looking like I'm not going to do it again this year, which is fine.
Yeah.
I've never done one. So it's not like
Have you been to Madison Square Garden before?
I've not for anything, not for Phish.
Oh, wow.
Never seen him at Madison Square Garden. It feels like It feels like I have to like kind of confess that almost every episode because
Yeah.
it's usually someone has like one of their best shows ever is at Madison Square Garden
Yeah.
for Phish, and they're always like, "And you've been?" And I'm like, "Yeah, no."
No.
You gotta
Yeah.
do that.
It's like I would prioritize it. I'm sure everyone says that, but
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
I think about, like with Phil Lesh just passing away. I think about, my girlfriend was at his last performance,
Wow.
and um, you know, life is just fleeting, and we take for granted. We think, oh, we'll do MSG next year or whatever, and you just never know what's going to happen. So prioritize that shit.
I know, man. And it does feel like I've I've prioritized Phish over other things, especially over the last couple summers here, just because yeah, there's been big chunks of my life where I haven't gotten to see him a bunch or travel for him at all
Hmm.
or anything like that. And it's like, yeah, you gotta see these shows. I will say this, having recently seen David Gilmour, who's 76, I'm like, if we get 16 more years of fit. I mean, it was a
Yeah.
phenomenal show. I was like,
Oh
wow. Like,
yeah,
yeah, I mean,
killer.
he's so fucking good.
Where'd you see it?
That was at the Hollywood Bowl. And
Oh,
so that was,
nice.
yeah,
Wow.
that was like a family thing. My dad is a huge Pink Floyd guy, and
Uh-huh.
he doesn't travel for a ton of shows, but we had to travel
Oh,
for that one. So,
awesome.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah,
Um,
I saw some clips from that, and it just what a setting, and God,
man,
unbelievable.
and then there's there's stuff that Gilmore's doing during the show where I'm like, obviously I've seen Trey try his hand at some of these moves before, but he's so yeah. I would man, I would love to see the band play as well as that band just played that I saw at Hollywood Bowl, and I think that if they like you said, life is fleeting, but if they're still around, I think that we could
Oh,
have them
hell
for a
yeah.
while. Yeah, man.
Yeah. All
Um,
right.
well, shit. Let's get into some of your best shows ever here.
Okay.
Before we do those, what's the first concert you ever saw in your life ever?
First concert I ever saw was Elton John,
Oh man, that's a
and
great first one.
it was unbelievable. I was 10 years old. This was 1980, and he came to Tucson, Arizona, and I just think about how much the live music world has changed. Like we don't get huge names in Tucson, Arizona anymore.
Not a lot of Elton John shows.
That's right. So anyway, I was already a fan. I was already an Elton John fan. Um, I bought with my first the first music I ever bought with my own money it was a gift certificate to my local record store, and I bought my older brother loved Elton John, so I bought an Elton John album because I knew, and then I bought one that I wasn't sure about, but the album art drew me in. I was like, I'm grabbing that because that's the coolest album I've ever seen. It was Blues for Allah by the Grateful Dead.
Very cool.
And I was 8 years old, so I had no idea that the first time that I put needle to vinyl was like the moment I became a deadhead,
Man,
um, at 8 years old.
even
And
even before you put the needle to the vinyl, you're like, that's
that's right.
I'm
I
drawn to
was
that.
so drawn to, like back in those days as a kid with older siblings, like when everybody had like a wall, like linear feet of albums. And whether you listened to the Grateful Dead or not, you had American Beauty or
Right.
whatever. There were albums that you had in your collection because you had to or whatever. So I like album art was kind of like my babysitter as a kid. And with like much older siblings, I was exposed to tons of killer music. So my brother um, took me to the show, and he was already moved out of the house and stuff, and
Cool.
took me to the show. So it's the first time. I mean, I'd smelled pot before, but I'd never like been engulfed in a cloud of smoke before. And it was the chicken suit, the playing with the feet up on the
Oh
full
man.
the costume changes, Saturday night's all right for fighting. And I was like, I felt the magic of live music in that moment, and with like one of the greatest performers of all time. And music that I already knew,
Yeah. I mean, that to see a song that you've already been pretty lit up by on the record live is a huge moment. And when you've got Elton John in a chicken suit playing it, the
that's
full
right.
production value, like, oh man.
Yeah, incredible. So that kind of like kicked off. I think that just stayed with me. That feeling of magic in the moment of live music, um, and obviously I carried that. It's something that's carried me through my whole life, really. Seen so many. I think maybe the last year or something, I made a list by memory of shows that I'd seen, and I was like, God, I've seen a lot of I've seen a huge range of music,
Yeah.
I just love live music, and I love going in cold. I love being surprised. Whatever. I'll see anything, really.
Were you starting to see anything pretty much right away, or were you like, I need to go see my next show after that Elton John show right away? Or?
Well, let's see that. I can't remember what grade you're in when you're in when you're 10 years old,
It's like
but
fourth grade, maybe?
probably fourth, right? So I
Yeah.
remember in fifth grade, I was already like wearing concert tees and stuff to school,
Cool.
and like down to my knees,
Yeah.
and I'll never forget. I called my mom at work. I got home from school in sixth grade, and I'm like, Mom, will you take me to go see the B-52s?
Wow.
And she goes, oh, I'd love to go to the Air Museum. I haven't been there in years. We have a Air Force Base museum here, and I was probably like, Mom, no, it's a band,
Rock
Um,
Lobster, Mom.
that's right. So sixth grade saw the B-52s, and so that's way pre like Love Shack, obviously. People were wearing trash bags and bubble wrap. I mean, it was full new wave action.
Yeah, I've heard that was a crazy scene. People have talked about seeing the B-52s in the 80s and being like, that was a wild scene out of all those bands.
It really was. And this was like in a small performance hall kind of theater too. And props to my mom. My mom kind of has always had a adventurous thirst for the unknown and new things. And props for her for taking me to that show. I mean, it was outrageous.
That's a good mom.
And I think I went to so many. My mom did not listen to popular music at all. She was much older. I was a late in life child, so a lot of kids my age, like their parents, listen to Motown and stuff. My mom listened to classical music and like Mexican music, and it's like I was kind of shit out of luck, but I saw a lot of good like operas and stuff like that when I was a kid. And she took me some amazing shows, and I got to take her. I've made a point. She's still alive. She's 92.
Wow.
And I still take her to shows. So
wow.
I told her she said she wanted to go see Phish, and I said the only way I'd take you is if we could get it like a box, like a luxury box, because mobility is a little bit more of an issue now. But anyway, yeah. So first concert, Elton John, and that just kind of like set me off on the right track. You might have to reel me in a bunch here, Cam.
No, you know this is exactly why I brought you on.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
this is about you. Where I want to hear about all the shows, and I know that we'll talk about Phish, and so I'm happy to hear anything else that kind of set up your super Phish fandom, and like maybe some of those compositions that your mom was playing around the house kind of set your ear for the compositions that were a little
Possibly. Like,
sillier.
I think I rebelled. I couldn't stand classical music for most of my life. It just, I just couldn't really deal because it just reminded me of like getting ready for school or waiting for the light on the waffle iron to
Yeah,
go on and that kind of stuff, like trauma.
yeah,
Um, so, but I think just um, and my mom very encouraging to explore and to live and to have fun, those are things that she's always lived by. And so, when it came time to be like, hey mom, I'm gonna follow the Grateful Dead for the summer. Oh, that's wonderful, It sounds like a great way to see the country, kind of thing.
well, thanks, Mom. I thought
Yeah.
so too.
So yeah, the support, is I really owe everything to my mom there, single mom, just a remarkable woman. Um, and I'm trying to think of some of the shows I've taken her to. I took her to a Grateful Dead concert.
I was just gonna ask if she ever made it to a Dead show
She
with you.
she said she had to
Yeah,
because after like getting collect calls and stuff from the East Coast when your kid is like 18 or something.
yeah.
She's like, I got to see what it's all about. And so I took her to a show in 1990,
Wow.
um, just after Brent had died.
Okay.
Um, then they went to Europe and then they came back and they did this little winter, a little mini winter run or tour. Um, So they played a couple shows up in Phoenix at Compton Terrace, and I was
Mm,
like, "This is perfect."
yeah.
And so drove up there with my mom. My mom has smoked pot like once in her life,
Okay.
not into it,
Right.
not anti anything, but just as straight as an arrow, really. And it was almost like my mom was having this like psychedelic experience. It was beautiful. There was like everything. She was like, it's almost like it's meant to be. I was like,
Yeah,
I was like,
man.
fuck yeah, mom. There was we were driving up through the desert and this like pack of wild horses of Mustangs was running in the desert next to the highway. And then it like crossed the highway. And my mom was like, it's meant to be, and then she was seeing skeletons in the clouds and shit like that. I was
Right.
like, fuck yeah, mom,
Like,
right
Mom, did you
on.
drink anybody's tea or
Right.
like, are you?
But so she had a great time. It was a really clean, like I'd say it was a clean experience. We
Yeah.
didn't see anything. There was nothing nasty that happened around us. She went on a little mission at set break. This is great. She's like, I'm gonna take a walk. I'm like, okay, mom, just like triangulate, pick a landmark so you can find us. She took off, she comes back, like I think the music had started already. She came back and she goes, my she's like, my landmark was this yellow balloon. And so I went to the yellow balloon and I ended up in a Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. She found the wharf
Wharf
rats.
rats. Yeah, I was just
I
gonna
was
say.
like, she's like, it was wonderful. I was like, so my mom went on this like little cultural immersion set break, she's like, and she took photos. She came back with these amazing photos of people in showers and baby carriages covered in stickers. Like, it was really cool to see see the show through my mom's eyes. You
Yeah,
know?
that's amazing. I mean, I have my folks are big live music people, and they are not deadheads, and they never seen Phish. And yeah, I mean, even thinking about sending my mom out at set break by herself with a cell phone, she's a very capable
Right.
woman, but I'm still just like, oh, I'm gonna go with you. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
you know, and then like, and thinking about the music starting and your mom not being back yet, and you're like, oh God,
yeah, yeah. I
whatever.
was shitting bricks, and she came back, and I think there was a fire on the mountain or something in the second set, and it was, it was like very anthemic, and the whole crowd is, chanting and fist pumping, and she was like, "It's so tribal," and I'm like, "Mom, you're fucking getting it, you're getting it." Like,
Yes.
so that was great. I took her to I think the last show I took her to that a recognizable name. We saw Elvis Costello here.
Cool.
That was really great. We've been to, I think, Lyle Lovett and his big band, which is
Nice.
just an amazing. It's almost like a review. I
Yeah.
recommend if you ever have a chance to see Lyle Lovett, like especially if it's advertised with his big band. It's like a review. He does a couple songs with the full band, then he like hands it over to his guitarist to play some solo stuff. Everyone leaves. It's just like this
Man.
rotating show of just fantastic music.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, and it is very cool that your mom is still down to see shows with you. That's what my folks are just retiring right now, and that's kind of their retirement plan, is to see a bunch of
Oh, cool.
shows and travel around and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I hope you guys keep that up for. I mean, I hope they keep it up till they're 92 as well. That'd be
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Do any of those Grateful Dead shows fall under like what would be considered like an honorable mention show? And do you have any like honorable mention shows?
Uh, that not my best, but honorable mentions.
Like right up there.
God, I mean, it was so hard to even try and come up with a best show.
It's a
And
really
I'm
stupid
sure
idea for a show. It's really dumb.
but it's so hard. And because shows have been earth shattering for me for different reasons. And
Yeah.
so like the honorable mention shows that I made notes.
I,
I had to.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Like the I'd say probably one of my top shows was Joe Strummer and the Mescaleros.
Cool.
And obviously Joe Strummer from the Clash, and the Clash was one of my first favorite bands when I was in junior high. And I was a little punk rocker in junior high, and I just loved the Clash. In fact, the first time I ever took psychedelics, I I had a bad trip. I had kind of a bad trip.
Yeah.
It was too early to
Yeah.
do psychedelics.
Right.
But I came back to orbit and listened to the Clash all night. So in 2001, when the Mescaleros were touring, this is right after 9/11, and the Clash, Rock the Casbah, had been banned from the radio by the FCC. There were a list of songs that were not allowed to be played on the radio, but for whatever reason. And
Right.
Rock the Casbah was one of them. And the Mescaleros were just an incredible band. This was at the House of Blues in Anaheim. After the show, one of our group had gone to use the bathroom, and during that time, a very large British man was like, "Hey, I reckon you'd like to come backstage and meet Joe Strummer." I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I would.
And so my friend, me, and these two women that we had been dancing with that night went backstage and hung out on a couch with Joe Strummer for I don't know, an hour.
Oh my God.
And he is like, he was so kind. He was interested in us. He didn't want to talk about himself. He had
Yeah.
a videographer with him. He was on this trip. He had been seeing a lot of festivals and stuff. So he was really into like human connection. So I got to meet Joe Strummer. I got to tell him that the first time I ever took LSD, the B side of Combat Rock was what brought me back. You know,
Saved
he
your
was
life.
like, it saved my life. But the show itself, was one of the most, if not the most passionate performer I'd ever seen on stage, and
Yeah.
that was just undeniable. Um, and one that really just changed my perspective on shit, like Hansel in Zoolander, you know.
Whoa.
uh, was the Smashing Pumpkins,
Oh
and I
yeah.
saw the Smashing Pumpkins in. I had never heard them. They weren't really famous yet, and I saw them in Portland, Oregon, in a little club. And at
Cool.
this point in my life, I was like monogamous to reggae, like roots reggae music only, right?
That's right.
And I was
That's
like,
right.
sure, I'll go see some music. I'll go see this band. And they changed my whole idea of what psychedelic music could be, you know? And that's a facet of the psychedelic world, like fuzz and
1000%.
emotional lyrics. And you're from Chicago,
Oh yeah.
right?
You
So
know, yeah. Loved
um
Smashing Pumpkins.
and I went in 100% cold, came out a lifelong fan.
Yeah.
And then the other one was a Grateful Dead show.
Mm.
And I I saw a lot of Grateful Dead concerts, and it's like, if you had asked me 20 years ago, one of those may have been my best show ever.
Sure.
I don't know, but this was at Laguna Seca Raceway, which
Mm.
is in Monterey, famous racetrack. Um, and in 1988, and it was incredible, like daytime sets. Again, there were psychedelics involved, and it just felt like, as a kid, I mean, I was 18, and it just felt like as like core and authentic and real as it gets. This was like Northern California,
Yeah.
daytime. It just had this vibe of just the real deal. And um, like, you knew that people there had seen them in the park and on the street and hate, you knew they were like old. So along with that comes what they call family acid, right?
Right.
Like original recipes and shit. So I
Exactly.
had this stuff called Goonie Bird,
Sounds good.
and it was a really heavy duty show. It's
Oh
the
man.
only time they ever played, the only time they ever broke up China Rider.
Okay.
So they did China Cat, Crazy Fingers, I Know You
Cool.
Rider. It was a little shaky, but it was still sick as fuck.
Very sick.
Yeah, incredible concert. And then the other one was a small show. These are just my runner-ups. Podium placers was Bon Iver.
Oh yeah.
And Tucson, before Live Nation like fucked everybody.
Mm.
We used to get a lot of incredible, like, small touring acts, like right before they blew up. We're right on I-10 in between California and like Texas or something.
Yeah.
Um, So we would get a lot of great bands. So I got to see Bon Iver. They, on a weeknight, and they got to a point where they're like, we played all our songs, let's do a little experiment or whatever. They were, I think, For Emma had come out maybe, but was not like the alternative chart topper yet,
That it was, yeah.
But I'd never seen a show like that. I'd never seen like grown men playing like play school pianos,
Yeah.
and a guy that just plays like the bike bell, ching ching, I was like, it was an incredibly powerful show, and again, came out a lifelong fan.
Yeah, I mean, when you describe that show, you're thinking that it's probably going to be silly, but they really do kind of change the pH of whatever room they were ever in. Bon Iver,
That's right.
Yeah, they really change everything. And then same thing with Smashing Pumpkins. Just to go back to that really quick. I mean, like you don't assume that is going to be something that's going to be heady, I'm sure going into it, especially at the time too, when Smashing Pumpkins aren't Smashing Pumpkins yet, and that is a sound that will really kind of envelop you as well. Talking about sounds that really, kind of swallow you whole.
A vibe,
Yeah. And when you're backstage with Joe Strummer, have you done a bunch of backstage stuff at that point in your life, or is it your first time?
I think nothing of note.
Yeah, so that's got to just be like, whoa.
It wasn't, and considering he was like one of my all-time favorites, and if I'd been thinking clearly, I would have like had him autograph my arm, because I would have gotten that tattooed or something. The only thing I had was a pack of rolling papers, so he autographed a pack of rolling papers.
Kind of cool though.
Yeah, so the runners up really are almost more, in many ways, more important than my best show. But it was too hard to pick a best show.
It's a dumb show. It's a dumb idea for a show. Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot that ends up setting up Phish in your life, but we haven't really talked too much about Phish, and I gotta assume that best show ever, I'm just guessing, is a Phish show?
It is a Phish show, yeah.
Yeah, I figured we'd be talking about Phish at some point.
It is.
Yeah.
Did you ask people about their worst shows?
I do ask them about their worst shows. We were on such a good positive run. I just kind of rolled right into it. Hey, sometimes the composition's a little different each show.
Going type 2 on me.
Yeah, exactly. We can stop for a worst show if you've got one.
Well, the thing about the worst shows are, I think they are really important to set kind of a scale for what a best show is, right?
Yeah.
Because the worst show was an actual bad show.
Okay.
It wasn't me being sick. Like a lot of people, their worst show is because they had a shitty time or something, right? I was on Dead Tour, and we saw Steppenwolf. Okay. Like, oh wow, Steppenwolf.
All right.
In Illinois, at a state fair or like a county fair. It was in a place called Wheeler. Do you know where Wheeler is?
I could not even tell you where Wheeler is, and I'm from Illinois.
It's I don't know, but like that was an actual bad show, because I was like, okay, they played Magic Carpet Ride, right? That's their hit, and Born to Be Wild, right? Those are the two Steppenwolf songs,
right,
that anyone would know, and they played them both twice.
Oh my god!
I was like, okay, this is a bad show, and I like twisted my ankle on like a fifth of Jack Daniels in the grass. Like I slipped on it.
Yeah,
my Birkenstock. I did a little banana peel, and I was like, this place sucks, So that was an actual bad show.
Yeah, I have only seen an artist do that one time, and it was I saw the rapper Tyga when I was in college at like a college meetup.
Where did you go to college?
I went to school in Milwaukee at this school called Concordia, Wisconsin, but it was at like a university school of more University Wisconsin Milwaukee kind of like fall concert thing. And I don't know if you remember the song Rack City, but he opened with
I
Rack City
guess.
and he closed with Rack
Oh,
City. I was like, I mean,
God.
and the rest of the show is obviously incredible. But no, I'm just kidding. It was really bad. It was
Yeah,
awful.
I
It was
think that's
terrible.
like it's kind of cringy. It's like if you were doing stand up and the only laugh you got, you're like, you want that again? You want those people to laugh again? Are you going to tell the same joke again? You know, it's
Yeah.
wild.
Oh man. And it's, not a cool sandwich like they do in the jam band scene. Okay. It's
No, right. It wasn't
just
a full
truly
set.
that's all they got. That's
That's funny.
that's all they got in the tank. Brutal. Well, that is a bad show, but now we can get on to your best show, the best show
Okay,
you've ever seen in your life.
my my best show, and the reason I chose it as the best show is because I really feel like it was the convergence of um, very important, pivotal in my life, um, as well as a fire fucking show. You
Yeah.
know, it
Yeah.
wasn't just a fire show. I've seen tons of fire shows.
Right.
And so this was my first Phish show back, if you will, from a decades long hiatus of not really even listening to Phish.
Yeah. For those who
And
have seen your work online, they've maybe seen that you saw shows. If they've seen any of your graphs, maybe
uh-huh,
your career, they've seen that you saw some shows in the early 90s, caught
that's
them
that's
like
right.
91, 92.
Yeah, handful of times up to 93.
Yep.
And then life took me into the mountains, and live music kind of was replaced by rock climbing. I became a lifelong rock climber. Anyway, um, I was, uh, it was a weekend, and I had seen this Rolling Stone Facebook page or something like that. This was 2017, and it mentioned Phish playing a residency at the Garden.
Yeah.
And it was like, watch here. And there was a little blue clicky. And I'm like, I'd never even streamed a show. I didn't even know it was a thing at this point.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
clicked it. It took me to Live Phish. I'm like, sure, I'll put 25 down on this. And by the end of the show, I had bought a ticket and a plane ticket to
Yeah.
Denver, the first available show I could see, because the second the music started on this stream, I was like, it hit me that these guys are older now too.
Yeah.
Like we kind of aged together, you
Yeah.
know, and they're having so much fun. The music was incredible, and the light show, I was like, I need this in my life. And I was in a really tough period of my life. I was listening to very like kind of sad music, lots of just sad Americana kind of music.
Yeah.
And so I bought a ticket to Phish at Dick's so my best show ever is 9/1/17.
Man.
I went alone, um, had a rent a car and tickets to the show. That's all I knew. And I was just going to see one night, and then I was going to go up into the mountains and do some mountain play myself. And once again, I found myself on the floor of Dick's down near the front, um, and I didn't recognize any of the songs essentially,
Yeah.
but I was like I it was kind of like an embrace. Um, it's kind of hard to articulate, but I was in a period of depression in my life. My sister had passed away and I had been grieving. I was in a toxic relationship. Like everything was just kind of fucked.
Yeah.
And the music I was listening to was not helping.
Yeah.
and
Reflecting.
and all of a sudden, their lyrics were nonsense, essentially. And the jam and the music was what spoke, you know? And I was so blown away by this Phish show. And I think not until Harry Hood, they played Harry Hood near the end of the second set, I was like, I think that may have been the first song I recognized. And I was like, oh, this was one of my favorite songs back
That
in
had
the
to be a
day.
gut punch.
I was like, oh my God. And
Yeah.
left that show, blown away. And my plan was to drive my rent-a-car to the top of one of the mountains near Denver to watch the sunrise. Straight as an arrow,
Yeah.
nothing. I was like, I'm charging and I want to watch the sunrise from the top of a 14er. I pull it off. I go, I do a backpacking trip, and I wake up on Sunday morning out in the backcountry. I'm like, Phish is playing tonight again.
Yeah.
I'm like, what am I doing out here by myself in the backcountry, like camping, solo camping? And I hiked out a couple hours, drove down the mountain, got online, got a ticket, and was back on lot at like 4 p.m. And that show is actually might even be more pivotal, but because of some emotions that came out during the jam. But you know, Phish was on fire in 2000. I think when they left the Baker's Dozen, I think it may have like freed them up. I don't really know, or they're just so well oiled at that point, you know. These were the first shows after the Baker's Dozen, so
Yeah. Well, I mean, that Baker's Dozen run did the same thing for a lot of fans too. It really woke a lot of people up, and I think reminded them of what Phish is capable of, or the time that you're able to maybe even have at a Phish show, even now. And so I think that you're not the only one that watched those streams that was like, I need to get to the next show ASAP.
yeah, yeah.
But you talk about getting emotional during some of those shows. I mean, you're someone who, like me, I feel like goes to these shows in search of heal. It's a self-healing trip. It's a
Absolutely.
it's something that really aids you and like you said, charges you. It, with all the Phish shows that you've seen and all of the important, you've posted about some very important shows that you've seen and some really important hoods and some really cool MSG shows, like we were saying. Like what kind of in that time, if you are okay with sharing it, like what kind of stuff was coming up for you during those two shows when you first came back?
Well, I felt like I realized that I was in a fog, kind of. And I think people that have experienced depression, ongoing or grieving or whatever, like in a blink of an eye, months can pass, you know?
Yeah.
And I wasn't into, I was still doing good things. I was healthy and everything like that. But I realized that I kind of had this soot on me or this fog. And the music I'd been listening to, like this lyrically based music, kind of tells you how to feel. It's like,
Yeah.
here, this is sad, you know?
Yeah, right.
What I realized is the jam invites you to feel what you're feeling already.
Oh yeah.
It could sound happy, but you might be going through some painful shit, even though the jam might be upbeat or happy. It doesn't have to be dark to bring out dark feelings or whatever.
Yeah.
And you know, this on that second night, I had made some friends down in the pit or down in the field, and it got so weird. They did this Down with Disease that just completely broke down and was just bizarre. And I remember whispering in this woman's ear, like, how are they going to bring us out of this? You know, like, where do
Right.
we go? And it started to kind of reanimate, reform. And she leaned over and whispered to me, she goes, light is how. And I was like, okay, I don't know this song, but it picked up and it was light. And the significance, I think, of after the fact, but in the moment, I just could feel it, and I could feel, I felt my sister
Yeah.
with me. Like I heard her voice,
Yeah.
not like I heard her voice, but I could hear her voice, you know,
Yeah.
in my head. And it was so beautiful. I was sobbing. I was dancing like crazy, sobbing, having the greatest time of my life. And, you know, realizing after the fact, Down with Disease, I mean, just the significance of disease and light, losing my sister to cancer. And light, this just pulled me out of the fog.
Yeah.
And I knew that in the moment, and I knew that in the days, weeks, and months afterwards. But I realized that that show, going to Dick's, it just changed the trajectory of my life. And I can pinpoint that. Making the decision to buy the ticket, take the ride, completely steered my life in a and opened up an entire new road. You know, I met my partner because of Phish. I've met so many great people through Phish. Uh, you know, it's just it. Those Dick shows in 17 just changed it for
Yeah.
me. And I went home after those shows, and I didn't I was like, I'm going to go to archive.org and listen to some Phish, and Phish isn't on the archive, Live
No.
Music Archive.
Yeah.
They're on like re-listen or something. So
Yeah.
I was like, I need to hear another Harry Hood.
Mm-hmm.
And I started, and I realized that listening to Harry Hood kind of brought the fuzzies back, and I could recapture that joy. I started listening to Harry Hood every morning. I was like, there's 380 versions of this song.
Could have a really good year.
I'm gonna listen to one every day. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden it turned into a project. I didn't miss a day, and I listened to every single Harry Hood. For over a year, I listened to Harry Hood every single day, a new version. I didn't take notes, you know. I'm kind of into deep diving music now, but I just listened every morning. And
Yeah.
again, it was an intentional, something intentional. And Harry Hood is like one of the best songs imaginable to like wake you up and like send you out the door with gratitude and everything to start your day. It was like a prescription for healing, you know?
I mean,
Um,
you know that I love Harry Hood. I think that if everyone in the world listened to Harry Hood before they left their house, it'd probably be a much better place to live in.
that's it.
I have "You Can Feel Good" tattooed on my arm because that hearing a Harry Hood at a show in 2019 absolutely helped me with a fog that I didn't even realize that I was kind of
Is
in
that right?
the moment. Yeah. Yeah. Um, Yeah, I mean, I've talked about it before, but like that Alpine 2019 run is a really, really impactful. That's not the first time I saw Phish, but that feels like the first time that Phish really socked it to me, you know, emotionally at a show.
Yeah.
And I'm in that time doing comedy, and same thing took me away from live music. It's not that I didn't see any shows, but I was really locked into the, you know, doing shows all the time and making sure I'm getting up and writing and all that kind of stuff. And when my brother and I are like, we're doing this 3-day run. We're doing the whole 3-day run. You're not like coming up for Friday and going back so you can do a show on Saturday night or something. Like, on that Saturday show, they play Harry Hood at the end of the show. And you know, that morning I had gotten like an email of some kind, like letting me know that I was going to be on a house team of something that I was trying to attain. And like, you know, during the show, it was like no one else was hearing this. And this is why Phish and jam music is so awesome, because it's a canvas that you can put your whatever is going on for you onto, but then sometimes it can be so simple. Like the lyrics can be so light is pulling you out of darkness simple.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Yeah.
And when they start, you know, that Harry Hood jam, and I'm just really thinking about how hard I've been really focused on this comedy thing and working really hard and like really want to make sure that like I'm seen at places by people who need to see whatever, all the stuff that you need to get ahead. And it was a reminder in that jam that you're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
You can feel good about what you've done, about what you've accomplished, and you're not where you want to be yet. No, but you're doing pretty good.
You were putting a lot of pressure on yourself at that point in life, and
yeah,
and just charging hard, trying to make it, huh?
a lot of focus on the things that I hadn't done yet or what wasn't at yet. And,
Mhm.
you know, yeah, look around at what you got. You're doing pretty well for yourself. You're doing
Yeah.
comedy in Chicago. Who the fuck thought that 5 years ago? You know, all those
Yeah.
kind of thoughts came flooding in, and yeah, same thing, just sobbing, but like at how good things are.
Oh, that's great.
Not sobbing at any
That's
grief. It's like, you're doing all right, man.
I
You know?
call those like gratitude tears. And
Yeah.
that's something that happens to me regularly
Yeah.
at Phish shows.
It's been happening for me a lot over the last year, especially. I mean, you were talking about what Phish has given you. Phish is so tied to how cool the last 2 years have been, and so yeah, I mean, it is hard for me to even attend a Phish show without crying these days.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, that's great. Yeah, show crier.
Yeah, you gotta be a show crier.
Right on.
Man. Well, I mean, do you have any shows coming up that you've got tickets for that you're getting excited coming up for? Not MSG.
Not
obviously.
MSG, nope. And I have tickets to go see the Disco Biscuits.
Cool.
My second Biscuits show, that's in LA in January. So
Awesome.
pretty much hunkering down for the holidays. Maybe try and catch some live music locally.
Yeah.
But no, nothing on the radar, nothing on the books, like Phish wise. So I'm kind of stressing a little bit about that, but
Hey, same. You know?
yeah.
But
No, I think it's a really good thing to temper FOMO and I mean, I think FOMO's healthy.
yeah,
At the same time, exercising restraint is healthy too. You know, you remember some things are more important. You know,
some things are more important, and we've got live streams now, so you can always
that's right.
tune in from the
And
couch with your
oh
cat.
yeah, and I'm definitely going to be doing that. How about you? What if you're not going to the Garden? Where's your next show?
It is. So my next show is going to be Goosemas, and that is I'm getting to do the Night Zero Goosemas show. Like there's like a pre-party thing, and so that I'm actually getting to like work a little bit. Get to
Oh,
go
cool.
there and do a show. That's kind of why that one's happening. In this time right now, Phish does not pay me to do anything.
Yeah.
And Goose isn't really paying me to do anything either. I'm just going to do a show at the Poorhouse in Charleston. So I'm looking forward to that. Was really fun last year. Goose doesn't necessarily hold the same space as like Phish in my heart, but that weekend last year for Goosemas was as fun as any weekend I've had in live music in a long time. Because
hell yeah.
Yeah, that hangout the night before is awesome. The night zero thing is so much fun. I'm like plugging this, and this episode is probably going to come out after it. So, but it was a lot of fun, and then it made the show so much fun because you're bumping into everyone that you saw at the hang the night before, and they make that presentation of their music fun, and so that'll be the next show, and then I think I'm doing Disco Biscuits and Dogs in a Pile in January. There's a couple January spots coming up
in the Bay Area.
Yeah, in the Bay Area. And
cool.
So, yeah, love the Disco Biscuits guys. Can't wait to see them again. And Dogs in a Pile, they were a band that after I saw them last, I didn't have another show on the calendar for a long time, and I got really into them over the last couple of years here. So I can't wait to see them again too.
Awesome. Yeah, came. We saw them. They came through town earlier this year, I think. Tiny little club. It was great.
It is cool to see them at tiny little places like that and check out, especially here, being in the Bay Area and being new, checking out smaller venues. They got a ton of cool ones here. So.
Oh, hell yeah. You have no shortage of music there.
I'm really lucking out.
My girlfriend's, she's kind of used to the Bay Area music scene, and it's so much different here. So.
Yeah. But when people come through, they play cool small venues.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. This was great. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Cam, no doubt. It's really good to finally talk to you in person. It's like it's a trip because I feel like I already know you, and now I feel like I know you better. You're just as nice and good vibes in this kind of real life. So
this is a type of real life, and thanks.
Yeah.
And this is it. This doesn't count as our first meeting, but it's great to meet you, and I can't wait to meet you.
I can't wait to meet you too.
So that was my talk with Data, and man, just this podcast was already out on the Patreon for a little while, and I got some reviews back from some friends who are like, I had to pull my car over and cry because this episode was so emotional for me. I think that there's a lot that people can connect with Data's story of maybe going away from the jam thing for a little while, coming back to it just because of you need that type of joy in your life, the type of joy that a jam band show can bring. And man, what a chat with him. We could have gone on for much longer too. It was a fantastic one. So I hope you guys enjoyed that one. If you enjoyed that, there's another episode out right now, brand new episode with former Phish tour manager Brad Sands. Go check that one out. And like I said in the intro, guys, if you've been enjoying the show, go ahead and subscribe to this YouTube channel. You can like the Spotify. You can, review and rate and do all the cool stuff that lets the algorithm know that you're enjoying it, and that'll really help get the word out about the podcast. I would love that, guys. But until next time, have a great show.